Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and start with the agenda tonight. And before we do that, I want to apologize for missing 3 of the last meetings, but glad to be back. So thank you. Let's go to work. First item on the agenda is approving the minutes held from December 8th.
I make a motion to approve those minutes and sign the warrant.
Motion made, second by Dave. All in favor? Good. Next one, audit, the audit presentation.
Craig, you go down from Bangor tonight to present.
Lot better weather.
Yes.
Turn the floor over to you.
That's for sure. All right, well, Mike didn't have a chance to go through the materials, but I'll be pointing up pages like I've done in the past. I did want to start with the first document, the 2-page document that has the findings. So we did have 2 weaknesses this year, very similar to last year, much improved, but we detected during the audit process. The first one, where we encountered several large adjusting entries that needed to fix the financial statements, and because of that, we have to issue this comment when we're the ones finding it during the audit process. So these adjustments affected throughout the funds, it affected the fund balance, and so that merits a comment. However, I've been discussing with Kelly over the process to improve it, and she knows exactly where to look now, and so it's kind of, whereas last year, a learning year, was kind of more difficult for her to learn the process and the financials in full. This year, she's got a good year under her belt that hopefully will help that out. The second comment was the cash reconciliations. The cash reconciliations are being performed. There is a review of the cash reconciliations. However, there's one more step that had to be done each month, and that's proving it to the trial balance number. And because of all the other adjustments that were not done up above, those cash recs did not match the financials. Nothing inappropriate done, just purely mistakes. Just posting mistakes between different accounts just caused it to be off. And then Kelly not necessarily knowing the full process of that reconciliation going right to the general ledger. So, but that's corrected now going forward and into this new year. So it seems to be working well, at least through 3 months of this year. So I'll direct you to, I'm going to skip over a lot of pages of this and point out highlights and just kind of point you to the pages to look at. So pages 6 through 12 I won't go through because this is the management discussion pages. Just kind of gives you overview of the financials. It's kind of in a nicer format than the rest of the report. A little bit easier to read if they can be. But I will go to to start on the financial statements, which is on page 13. And I only point out this schedule because it is so different than the other schedules. And as I've stated in the past, this is presented on a business type level. So it brings on fixed assets and it brings on long-term debt, whereas towns and other governmental entities don't have to report that way. They don't bring those assets on and liabilities because you're budget basis. So these are presented showing a total fund balance with that activity. So I just like to point down to your total net position, which is in the governmental activities is all your funds combined, except for sewer fund, which is the business type. So you come down to that total net position, 11,526, pretty healthy position. Banks tend to use these statements when they're looking at liquidity and levels of your debt levels, ensuring that your ratios are correct, are pretty good. So it looks pretty good there on that basis. And then on statement 2, page 14. This is just a weird format of showing program revenues, offsetting program expenses as best as possibly could be matched to the department costs to come down to come over to a net amount per department or program function. So it's just a strange format. And again, comes down to the net position that I mentioned on the previous page. Going forward to page 15. Here you're just presented with two funds, your general fund, your general operating fund, your budget, where your budget is based, and then your capital projects fund. Not much activity in the capital projects fund, just winding down the station, with a little bit of activity left to go through for next year. But if you look at your general fund, you see your fund balances broken out. You have committed funds, you have assigned funds, and then you have your unassigned funds, so you're unrestricted. The breakdown of those are in the footnotes. So that first one was $1,686,400. You can look at the breakdown of what comprises that on page 35 in the notes. And then on page 36 is the other fund balance, which is the assigned. So it just gives the total, the several different accounts that make that up. So there's nothing else to highlight on that page. I'll just briefly go to page 17. Showing your revenues and expenditures in a format that's more what you know the format to be, and then coming down per fund to your total fund balances. And as you can see on the capital project side, how you come down to just $56,000 left over in that project. And I'm going to go further into that revenues and expenditure side. If there's no more questions on if there's are not any questions on these, I'll highlight the budget versus actual. The only other thing, sorry, before we go to that, the sewer fund, page 19, 20, and 20. You'll notice on page 20 that the sewer fund has a loss of $80,000. Not to be alarmed, a large part of that loss is a result of recording depreciation. Because again, sewer funds are treated like a business, so depreciation is recorded here. So you have $181,000 coming, reducing the profit over there. So otherwise it is a positive year for it. So page 24 and all the way through 41 this year are your footnotes. And if you want more detail of accounts that are in those other financial statements that I just went over, it breaks a lot of those numbers down. The assets, liabilities, cash, gives more detail on what's comprised within those financial statements. So I won't go through each one of those. Page 42 is your budget versus actual. So this is after some budgetary changes that need to be made that were voted on during the year. You'll see that you have your revenues budgeted. Your final revenue budgeted was $12,278,375. Your actual, again, after all audit adjustments, so if you're viewing reports during the year, during previous council meetings, some of these numbers would have changed as of the June 30 numbers that you last saw. But you took in $12,944,000. So you had a positive variance there, $665,933. So pretty good taking that extra money, a large amount of that being the excise coming in unanticipated. On the expenditure side, after the budget changes, you budgeted $13,034,234 to spend. You only spent $12,428,270. So another positive variance there, $606,964. So total positive budget variances of $1,271,897. However, you budgeted take from fund balances, as you see below. You budgeted $312,000 to come from fund balance, another $85,000 to come from committed, and then $612,000 to come from was used and put into the budget for prior year carry forwards. So that gets taken off that net difference. So, but you still ended up adding to your fund balance $746,000 this year. So in total, your fund balances, if you see down below, the overall fund balances were $4,442,259. So had you not had those positive budget variances, you would not have added, obviously, back into your fund balance. So it was a pretty positive year last year. So.
And if you recall, we lowered our expectations of revenues.
Yeah.
Chopped expenses. So I think that had a big factor in why there was so much left over.
Yeah. So those are the highlights.
Can you talk
Take
to
some
them
questions.
about the trusts a little bit and what's coming down the pipeline for that? Gatsby or,
That's already in here.
okay.
So the trust funds, it wasn't a large classification, so I didn't go over it, but what she's referring to is the trust funds are kind of split up now. So some of them, if they're not fully in a true trust account, they're shifted over into your regular operating funds and track there. So that you're still left with a large chunk on page 22 of which are your trust funds.
But you determined there were 4
Yes.
actual physical trusts.
So that's when families or a person donates to the town for a specific purpose, such as library or cemetery.
Or Green now,
Yeah.
cemetery trust.
Yeah. So when there's trust set up by these families or persons, and it's contained in that for the town, then they stay over here in these private purpose trust funds. But there was 36,000 moved from there over to your regular operating, to your general fund this year. So that's.
Is the money, the stock that we received from that gentleman,
Schmaltz.
is that
That is
in here?
not a trust.
Correct. That's part of the that's in the general. So that's set
And how
aside.
much was that finally when we saw it?
25,000.
Yeah.
No, it ended up being 30.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, we made $6
Yeah.
grand
About
off of
six.
it.
Right, 'cause he gave us the,
We made 6,000 last year off
right,
of the
right.
interests
That's
and
right.
stuff, so it was, he said he was giving us 25,
Right.
but when we actually sold it, it was 30, so, yeah. Yep. But we do have to talk about it, account for it, but it's not figured in when we're building the library budget. And that's what he didn't want it to be used in
In
her
lieu of.
actual operating budget, which we don't do, so.
Right.
Any questions for Craig?
No questions? Seeing thank you for driving all the way down.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Welcome.
A lot better drive tonight than it was last
Happy
week.
New Year.
Yeah, same here.
Next item up on the agenda is a vote for the police department's dispatcher.
Dispatcher is going to take benefits now since Kathy has retired. And she's asking to put on the bumpers that we've offered to the police department. We found out, or Kelly found out, that that has to also be voted on as we did for the police department. And if you so please, I have a sheet here I'll pass around if you're willing to accept her.
I'd make a motion, we put her onto the main PERS.
Second by David, all in favor?
I'll send that right through to you.
Thank you. Next item up is to talk about the considering wetlands delineation for Wrigley property.
This is a large parcel of land, and this is a part of the process that we're gonna have to go through in order to go and use that piece of property, because, I mean, we don't know where the wetlands are on it. We think we know that they're on the left-hand side, so we need to get it professionally assessed. And, we just got an estimate from Burnham, and we're gonna go out to bid on it, but I mean, we don't have to do it now. I'd like to get this thing started. I mean, we put the power in, this is the next phase on it. We're gonna have to get permits from DEP for change of use on the entrance. There's a lot of different little parts of this, so we're just gonna try to pick it off a little bit at a time. And if this is okay with you, I'd like to have a motion for $5,500, just in case the 52 is, I mean, 52 is gonna, well, I think we can start with 52, and we can go from there.
Is this similar to what a developer would have to do if they were going to develop that property or something, is do this?
Same thing.
Yeah,
It's gonna be all required by DEP.
yeah.
So did you say that we have a proposal from somebody, but we're going out to bid?
Yeah, we wanted to find out what it was gonna cost us about. So we asked a company that Boyd happens to know, and she tends to be fairly inexpensive compared to the others. And she came in at $5,200, but we'll go out to bid on it and see if somebody else comes in.
When do you anticipate?
Spring is when she's gonna do it. She's gonna wait until after the snow's gone. It's fairly saturated, and that gives her a chance to find out if there's any vernal ponds up there that we have to deal with.
But when will it go out to bid?
It's got to go out to bid as soon as we get the money assigned for it. We'll do up the RFP on it and send it out ASAP.
You want that to come out of general fund?
That'll come out of general.
I'll make a motion, we take up to $5,200 to do this environmental review.
Second by Bob Nutting, all in favor? You have anything else?
Spirit of America.
Yep.
We've got a threat link about that. I haven't talked to Jan about it yet. I've been getting emails on it, so we're gonna have to put your thinking caps on. We'll talk about it at the next council meeting. We'll come up with maybe some recommendations on our end. And we'll come
Also,
up with-
dedication township board.
Yes, we'll talk about that later.
Nothing else, because upcoming meetings on the bottom, we are going to enter into executive session just for a moment. There are some upcoming meetings, the Memorial Hall Committee meeting, Memorial Hall Tour, and the Oak Fest meeting. And the dates are right there on the bottom of the sheet. Kelly, do you have anything tonight? Do you have anything?
Oh, I do, actually. Sorry.
Yeah, no?
My parents live at 69 Pleasant Street, right next to a corner store, and the water does not drain well there. So whenever there's water, it pools in front of their driveway. So needless to say, this last storm we had, so then when the plow trucks come by, my parents' cars get encased in ice, and I mean encased in ice, because there's just a wave of water that they plow. So it's not draining well, and the drain is after their driveway heading towards the school. So I just told my dad I would mention it.
Yeah, I'll talk to Jeff about it.
It's
What's the address up there, Kelly?
69 Pleasant Street, right before the corner store, I know, right?
Yeah, it's a little
Little tan
Yeah.
house, there's two of them next to each other, yeah. It seems to get worse every time there's a storm. It's
I'll talk to
not
Jeff
draining
tomorrow
well,
about it.
so.
Does that get frozen over, Kelly, or?
Well, right now, there's about 5 feet of glare ice at the end of their driveway, where it's just all pooled and frozen since then, so.
Nothing will drain now anyways.
Well,
If we get another rain event.
yeah,
It is frozen over.
Has this been an ongoing thing?
yeah, ever since they moved there, yeah.
they got called. We had them go there when it was really raining this last time.
Yeah, they called. I think Sonia called from the corner store
And so Jeff did go up, but,
and take a look.
yeah. So the state
road through there.
It's a state road,
Yeah.
so they fixed it for the, you know, when the storm was going on, but state road, yeah.
Well, I'll call my guy.
Well, it's
No.
not gonna do any good with those guys.
Oh, no, they like me.
Yeah, you will.
DOP, DEP?
Yeah.
Good. I think I have luck with them.
Jeff won't be offended.
We'll see what we come up with.
Yeah.
Okay. I just told my mention it.
Did you have anything?
No, we're very, very slow at the senior center. We got people with pulmonary embolisms, broken hips, and everything else. So, on top of COVID, so things are very quiet, but it's going well.
Dave, did you have anything before we go into executive session?
No, if we don't want to bring up that opera stuff, I'm good.
Bob, did you have anything?
I'm all set.
At this time, let's enter into executive session in personal matter of 1 MRSA, section 4056A. Thank you for coming forward.
I'm sorry, who motioned?
Dana?
David.
I did.
And he did. Thank you so much.
Pick one.
Let's answer it.
One of those guys. Next,